This video is going to discuss about piping. Piping is the natural conclusion of this whole series of videos on redirection. Right now, if you think about it, all we have been doing is taking a process, right? And we have been putting files, connecting files to its standard input instead of the keyboard, and connecting files to its standard output and standard error output instead of the screen of the terminal. Okay, so this has involved one process and then data files. Now let's say that I have a command here. Let's say this is my keyboard. Okay, I enter some data on my keyboard here. It's consumed by a command here, used by a command. This command is producing some error message, okay, which normally never happen, but it can produce error message here. And most importantly for me, it produces some data, okay. And now what I have is I want to take the result of this data, and maybe I want to feed the result of this first processing, okay, to another command, for example sort, okay, another filter that's going to be able to, well, if necessary, generate, an error message. But what I'm really looking for is, let's call it data prime, okay. This is the next step in the processing of the data that I originally inputted in my keyboard, okay, and I want to display that on the screen, right? So that suggests a chain here, okay, because this file here is really a temporary file, okay. I really don't care much, and I cannot write apparently with this thing. Okay, I do not really care much about this file at all. As a matter of fact, when I'm done, this is input from the keyboard, this is output on the screen, I'll probably remove that file, okay? So it's really an intermediary step in processing to redirect to a file, then read from the file and send it to the next command, the next tool I want to use. What I would like to do, ideally, is take this input here from the keyboard, okay? And everything, by the way, everything I say here about input from the keyboard, you know that we can connect anything here. We can connect a keyboard input from the terminal. We can connect a file also, okay? So don't worry too much about that. I can generate my error message here, but I would really like to do this. I would really like to connect directly this tool. So I would really like to connect the STDOUT of this tool, descriptor 1, to the STDIN of this tool, descriptor 0, okay? And then, as usual, my errors can go here, and then that would go on the screen. That would be great, okay? That would be getting rid of unnecessary intermediary steps. So that's exactly what we are going to do, to learn to do right now in this video. This is called piping, okay? This is called piping because the symbol that we use to redirect between the two here is a vertical pipe that appears either as a straight line or as a interrupted vertical line on your keyboards and on your screens, okay? So this is a symbol that's generally over the backslash. Shows shift backslash, which is located above the enter key, is going to give you this pipe symbol. And we are using this pipe symbol actually to connect the output of one process to the input of another process. So let's take a look at how this works, right? What do we have? What kind of tool do we have to generate content? Well, I can use a keyboard, right, to generate content, no problem. So I could use cat, or I could use echo if I want to just have a tool that spits something on STDOUT. So let's use cat for now. Cat by default, okay, at type 1, it says 1 on STDOUT. At type 2, it says 2 on STDOUT. At type 3, it says 3 on STDOUT. So as is, cat is not, a great tool, but then I can redirect, my output in a file called data.txt, for example, and then it makes sense, okay? Cat is just reading from the keyboard and then sending to whatever the data is redirected to. So in this case, data.txt, and you can see my data there. So I'm going to use cat, but I'm not going to use cat to redirect to a file. I'm going to use cat, and then I'm going to use this new syntax, the pipes, the vertical pipe, okay? And I'm going to say I want to redirect to, well, what kind of tool do we know that would take an input and produce an output based on it? Sort, okay, why not? So I do cat pipe sort, and it's not going to be anything fantastic, because in this case what happened is that I type 1, and cat sends 1 through STDOUT, okay, and it ends up going into the STDIN of sort. So let's take a quick moment here to just draw this diagram, okay? So what I'm doing in practice here, I'm using the cat tool, okay? So cat is reading from the keyboard, All right. There's no error right now, so but the error would be on STDIN, and STDOUT is piped to sort, which instead of reading, that's not the proper symbol for a tool process. Instead of reading from the keyboard, sort is reading from STDIN, right? Which has been piped everything that comes out of STDOUT from the first tool. And then obviously STDIN gets error message if any, and sort by default, this has not been changed, display to the screen. Okay, so this is in a quick diagram what's happening here. So let's go back to the terminal. I typed 1, so 1 went from, let's do it here. The text, the line text 1. Let me take a different color. There we go. Okay, I typed 1. It went through STDIN to cat, which spit it out to STDOUT, which is connected to STDIN of sort. So sort is getting 1, like if I typed it on the keyboard. So this is why I'm saying this example is not phenomenal visual or anything like that, because pretty much cat is sitting between the keyboard and sort, but we could very well have sort, just read from the keyboard, and that would end up in the same result, which is 1 is being, so 1 here is here in transit, 1 here is sent to the terminal and will appear on the screen after it has been sorted. Okay, so sort is going to get 1, 2, 3, and then sort them out and then display them on the screen. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3. Let's go 4, 5. Then Control D. So cat had everything it needed. Okay, it's done. It has been passing everything it got as it got it to sort. Sort has been storing everything it got. And then as soon as the input was done, sort has been sorting internally what it has received so far and displays it on the screen as you can see there. Okay, so this is output of sort being redirected. So this is in a nutshell pretty much the piping. Okay, a tool that is very often useful when you do this kind of when you construct this kind of pipeline. Okay, and you're not limited to 2 commands, by the way. You can have like 50 commands. That's not a problem at all. One of the tools that's often useful is the command T, and the command T is a command that's just meant to actually work with this kind of pipeline. Okay, the reason it's named T is simply a visual reason. If I put let me find my here we go. I find my pen here. I'm going to erase this real quick. Okay, and I'm going to replace it with there we go. Alright, I'm going to replace it with T. So let's say that I am adding, right now I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to move it. It worked. So now I'm adding T, okay, as a tool in the middle. And the thing that T is going to do is visually, it's going to still propagate whatever comes in input, to its output. So it's neutral. It's a filter that's neutral. Everything it takes in input gets propagated to STDOUT. Okay, so it's not going to interrupt my pipe or anything here. But in addition, and this is the name for the reason for the name for the tool. Okay, it looks like a T. In addition, it's going to dump actually also its STDOUT. It's going to duplicate it into a file that I specify here. Okay, so typically we use that for log files and stuff like that. Okay. So let's go back to the terminal. So if I do something like that first, nothing should change, right? So hold on, because we are going to do this a few times. Let me just put in a file here, data.txt. Okay, I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there we go. So now we have this saved in the file. It's going to be easier. Now I'm going to bypass all this typing. I'm going to say, okay, cat data.txt pipe sort. Okay, and that does what we expect it to do. No problem. Now what I'm going to add T in the middle here. Okay, and T is not going to change my pipeline, but it's going to also dump whatever comes into a log. Okay, so now if I look at my files, I have a new file called logged. And it has everything that came inside of T. Okay, so cat data was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gets passed to T. T passed this out to STDOUT for sort to use. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 get passed to sort. That's going to put it in order 5, 4, 1, 3, 2. Okay, but in the meantime, T is also dumping on the file everything it was given. So I have a copy here of the input data that came in the pipeline for T. Okay, and if I do this several times, not the cat, sorry about that, but this thing, okay, and then I cat log, you see it behaves like a standard, simple redirection. Okay, it overwrites. If I don't want this and I want instead to append, there is a nice option for T-A that's going to allow me to, if I use this command, let's say 3 times, and look in the log file here is going to be used in append mode, in redirection append mode, so allowing T to dump the consecutive version of the input data that it got, okay, into that same file. So this is pretty much redirection in a nutshell. Now, what I would like to have you think about is how do we redirect both STDIN and STDOUT to a pipeline. So this is a rather common use case. So there is actually an easy way to do that. The syntax of the pipe is just pipe. Okay. So syntax to tie in together both STDIN and STDOUT and STDAir is pipe ampersand. So if I do something like, let's use myprog again. Okay. I'm going to use myprog. So definition of myprog, it describes it, it prints on STDOUT a message that says something about STDOUT. It prints on STDAir a message that says something about STDAir. We have been using that already in the past, okay, in the past videos. So what I want to do now is I want to do myprog pipe and what can I do with this output? I guess I could just cat it on the screen, okay. If I do this, you can see that, well, it's a very bad example. Let me scratch that. Instead of doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm trying to use the tools that we have talked about only so far. So I need something that's going to involve a file. So let's use T. Okay. What's happening here is that when I do myprog.sh, well, both STDIN and STDOUT goes to the screen, so well, both show up on the screen. When I say pipe cat, not the same thing happens, but the result is both show up on the screen, so you cannot tell the difference. Now I'm going to use T. I'm going to use T, and I'm going to redirect to a file that I call real output. Okay, just real output. And this is what happens. So myprog.sh is going to display on STDOUT the message. This is something for STDOUT. Okay. If I look inside real output, that went through the pipeline. So only STDOUT went through the pipeline, went into the command T. The command T took its input pipeline STDIN and dumped it into a file real output, and then copied the same data to its STDOUT. So both message ended up on the screen. Okay, but what's important is that only this is something for STDOUT reach the T command. So if I want to diagram this again, let's do a quick. I'm going to make some room here. Hold on. Going to erase this and redo it with this example that we're working on right now. Okay, so in this example, let's go back real quick. I use myprog.sh, right? All right, so myprog.sh is taking nothing from STDIN, okay, and dumping one message on STDOUT, another message on STDAir. So this is STDAir, which is the terminal. Okay, so we haven't changed that at all. Now this is STDOUT, and STDOUT has been piped. Okay, so I'm going to write it like this to the STDIN of the T command. And what does the T command do? Well, on STDOUT, which is a screen by default, right, it's going to display whatever it got in input. So it's going to display, this is something for STDOUT. This message goes all along this pipeline here. While the message, this is something for STDR, just come out of myprog.sh and went directly to the screen. Okay, so you see the difference. And then my real output file here got actually, you know, a copy of what went on STDOUT, which is a message. This is something for STDOUT. So this diagram should completely explain what happened here in the terminal. If we go back to the terminal, okay, now what we are going to try to do is we are going to try to combine STDOUT and STDAir together through the pipeline. So if I do this, okay, I'm going to again look at my file. You can see that now both messages went through my file. So what happened, and I'm going to use a different color to mark the difference. What happened is that when we did the ampersand here, pipe ampersand instead of just pipe, okay, my file descriptor number 2 here got redirected to point to the pipeline as well. So instead of having, myproc.sh display its message on STDIN, which was the screen, both messages went through the pipeline. So both messages ended up in the file, here the log file, and both messages ended up displayed on the screen, but this time by T. Okay, so it's important that you play with this example to really understand how we are going to use this new notation, the pipe ampersand, to tie in, actually, to do what we called previously merging, okay? Merging different file descriptor together, redirecting them to point to the same thing. And we have done that implicitly with this easy notation, okay? Because that's a traditional use case. So that should wrap it up for this video, and thank you again for listening.